welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, Jordan. How are you?
I'm good. I most people don't watch on YouTube, but I should have grabbed a hat. This is not a great look for me. But if you're listening on Spotify or whatever, you're good. You're saved. How is everything going over there?
It's good. It's busy but good. I'm
Yeah,
getting ready to go to Florida next week for a convention with NCI. Um, so yeah, and
tell me about that. What are you doing?
we are let's see. Alan Aragon is going to be speaking, Lane Norton, and also I'm a part of NCI, so I'm going for business as well.
Nice. You're not speaking at this one. I know you're speaking at Coach's
No.
Summit. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're good. I want to pick your brain a little bit about that, just about what you're talking about. And just like I remember congratulating you and I saw you were on there, and you're going to do great, by the way. So I want to hear about what you want to talk about there. But give a little bit of an intro for people that listen to my podcast, don't know who you are, or do, but want to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. So my name is Beth Feraco. I'm a nutrition, strength, and mindset coach, I guess you could say. I have a coaching business called Beth Feraco Fitness, Team BFF. I have coaches on my team. We help people heal their relationship with food, get strong, and ditch yo-yo dieting forever.
That's awesome. And I've known Renee for a long time. Renee works with you. Fantastic coach,
Yeah.
amazing person, just awesome. So that's as much as I know about what you guys do as far as coaching, but I know she really enjoys it, and she's a great coach, great person.
She is, yeah. Patty's
awesome.
Coaching for me too.
Oh, Patty too. Oh my God, Patty too. Sorry, Patty. Patty's gonna listen to this. Yeah. Okay, wow. Yeah. Good squad. That's
yeah,
excellent.
good squad.
Awesome. How long have they been working with you? We met, by the way. We met in Austin. I don't know, 18 months ago or something. Were they working with you then?
Patty's been working with me since then. Renee, I believe, is over a little over a year. And then I have a few of all my coaches I've known or have worked with. So most of them are inner circle members. There's 6 total right now, and I'm looking for a couple more. But I have Iris. Do you know Iris Deadlifts?
Yeah.
And Brooke. Get you a Brooke. She's also a coach. Coach Christy.
This is a good squad. This is a good
squad.
These
it's a really good squad.
Yeah. Okay, nice.
Very exciting.
Handpicked by you, I'm sure. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, okay, great. I'd love to hear just a little bit how people get into the fitness space. I mean, everyone has somewhat of a unique story. Sometimes they're just a similar train of things, but I think that there's something to learn from. Not everybody comes from the same place. I think you and I have slightly different backgrounds of how we got into this, and that's interesting. Yeah. So I'd love to hear just kind of how you got to do what you do.
My fitness journey, I guess, into the health and wellness space started when I quit drinking 8 years ago. So what happened was when I was quitting drinking, I was going to AA. I met a girl there that was starting a boot camp type thing outside. It was like, let's meet at 5:30. A meeting was at 7. So we would meet there, and she got me into running. So I actually started off with running. So much so I got plantar fasciitis, shin splints, because I just quit drinking, and running was so fucking hard that I'm like, this is something I want to focus on because it's taking away from the fact that I want to drink right now. So I threw myself in running. And from there, she actually ended up getting a job personal training somewhere else. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? So a gym happened to open up across the street from where I was going to AA. And I started taking classes there at 6 a.m. And so I knew that I can go right from there to my AA meeting. And the reason I had to go there in the morning was because my husband owned a business and I had to be home by like 8 a.m. so I can take care of the kids who were really small at that time. So I started doing that. And then they were looking for a front desk person. And at the time, my son was just about to start preschool, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, this would be perfect for me to start doing while my son is going to school. And so I started doing that. And Hunter, who is now my business partner, asked me if I wanted to start interning because he feels like I would be a really good coach. And I was like, absolutely. So I started interning there. At that same time, I found about Jordan Syatt, joined his inner circle, and was kind of like, on my own fat loss journey. I was, overweight from drinking, over exercising, but never focusing on my nutrition. And what I learned from taking the classes there is that all the women in there were working really hard, and they were always complaining about how their body wasn't changing. They're not losing weight, but they're exercising. They were there every day with me, kicking ass, but no one was focusing on the nutrition, or they were doing crazy fad diets. I remember, keto was like huge then. And so I think I dabbled in that a little bit. But that's what got me focused in nutrition first. So I got certified in nutrition. And at the same time was, losing fat and figuring all like the calorie deficit, weighing, measuring your food from Jordan Syatt. So it kind of like intertwined. And then I got certified in personal training, and then I got my certified functional strength coach cert from Mike Boyle. And then I started teaching, small group personal training classes, group classes, and kind of just went from there. Worked there for about 4 or 5 years. Right before COVID, I told my then boss, Hunter, I'm like, I really want something for myself in case something happens to my husband, because my dad passed away 4 days before I graduated high school, and left my mom and three kids with nothing. So we went bankrupt. We lost the house. And so I had that vision in my mind that, my husband at the time was kind of my dad's age, and I was, PTSD, like, I don't want to be left with nothing. So I told him that I was going to join Jordan's online fitness business mentorship. And like at some point I was going to start my own online business. And he was like, yeah, that's amazing. But COVID happened. And so I kind of got thrown into it, literally. Like the gym closed down. I was homeschooling and I was in this business mentorship. So I'm like, what else am I going to do with my time but throw myself in to creating an online business? And one of Jordan had monthly challenges, and one of them was to make a TikTok every day for 30 days. And at first I'm like, fuck that. Like my stepdaughter was on it, and it was like Musically, or it was like, it was nothing that I wanted to do. And but I did it. And one of my videos went viral, and literally I haven't stopped since. So that's kind of how that began in a small little nutshell.
No, that's awesome. We must have been in the mentorship at the exact same time.
Were you in there too?
The first round of that mentorship.
Okay, yeah. So you were in there with like Ryan Cassim.
Yep.
In the very beginning. Okay.
Yeah, very beginning. Good times, definitely, and certainly understand. Like, definitely was kind of doing a hybrid in person, online, and then COVID hit, and then certainly that sort of like timeline of like, well, I guess I do this online now, and I guess this is the only way we're going to do it for sure. I don't want to make a story where there isn't one, and I don't want to pretend like I have any idea what it's like just to struggle with alcohol addiction. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to make a story where there isn't one, but I'm going to ask anyways. There's something about going through that experience and overcoming that, and overcoming might even be the wrong words, like continuing to work on that for the long term, that you take with you into your coaching.
I think, oh yeah, for sure. Because I think, obviously, no one's addicted to food and sugar and things like that, but there are some aspects of like addiction that do kind of apply to people's behaviors and mindset. So I think that for me, knowing like, honestly, real addiction, I can relate to some people's like struggles with food. Like it's a real thing.
Yeah, and so, you're right to say that technically speaking, you are not addicted to food, you're not addicted to sugar, but I think you're also even smarter to say that practically speaking, that there's enough of an overlap here that there's things to learn. Yeah. And so you're right. Technically speaking, just like from a physiological perspective, you're not addicted to food, but from a behavior perspective, there's enough of a parallel for you to draw some similarities there.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. Sure. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Is there yeah, I was going to say, is there any element of that you have had to do with your own journey? That, okay, obviously that's something you're paying forward in your coaching, but is there something that you find as a thread with your own journey as well that's come from then and served you well now?
Yeah, because I struggled with yo-yo dieting. I grew up with a mom that was consistently dieting, like Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers. She was the cardio bunny. In fact, she's like in her 70s and still diets. Like, it's one of those things that I feel so bad. It's like she'll never get past that. She has like quit sugar. We used to do 2-week fasts together.
Shit.
Yeah, like the lemonade diet, like the maple syrup, cayenne pepper, lemon juice. I drank that for 2 fucking weeks straight, and drank Smooth Move tea at night. I've done the HCG diet, so I've had disordered eating throughout my entire I say teens up until, my early 40s. And that was always intertwined with drinking. So I feel like my eating disorders, which I was never diagnosed, but my disordered eating, I should say, and my addiction were intertwined. So I would do these let's say paleo or Whole30 because I wouldn't be able to drink. I would do these diets not to drink. which is kind of insane when you think about it. And but I would always end up drinking and drinking more after these diets, or I would, binge drink and then juice for like a week because that's healthy. Yeah.
That's how you detox it, That's
You know
how
what
you
I'm saying?
undo
I
all
was
the
like,
alcohol.
I'm so fucking healthy. Let me juice for a week and then start drinking a bottle of wine a night again. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was that person that would give my husband shit for having too much sugar, but I was drinking wine every night.
Yeah, and so you're super in tune with that sort of just walking contradiction.
Yeah, and so that's why I preach a lot. If you hear me talk about diet soda and people comparing that and saying it's horrible, it's like, well, what about alcohol? I was this person that used to give everyone shit for all these things that aren't toxic. Meanwhile, I'm doing the most toxic thing ever. It's kind of hard to face that reality for some people.
Yes, it most certainly is. And speaking of parents, it's kind of funny. Like I love my mom. She won't listen to this, but we laugh about this still. Is like her son is a nutritionist, a strength coach, and all about lives in the health space and all this stuff. And she's my mom, bless her. She's in great shape. She lifts weights. She kills it. I'm proud of her. But like we'll have like a great talk about like increasing protein as you get older. It's like the anabolic resistance. Like we need to just make sure you're getting enough protein. Like she'll always have a question for me when we hang out. And then like, I'll feel like, wow, what a productive chat. Like really had a good chat with my mom. Like I'm happy. Like we're just like doing good by her and she's going to continue to be healthy. And then I'll like go home and metaphorically, I'll like look on my phone and we have like a synced up like Amazon account and there will be like carb blocker pills like have just been purchased. And I'm like, God fucking damn it. Like, what did we just talk about? Like, like, not that there's no hope. And I'd say that mostly tongue in cheek and it's funny, but I do see that like, that generational shift a little bit. I think, it's so crazy. The world's getting fatter and fatter. Let's be real. We're getting less and less healthy. But in some ways, maybe just it must be because we're in a bubble. I feel like we're making progress, but like maybe we're not, like with the people that are in there, let's say sub 60 years old, I feel like we've done a decent job normalizing weightlifting. We're trying, I guess. But yeah, it does. I do see that generational gap, that there is definitely a shift.
Yeah, we're trying. It's a war. I feel like it really is. I feel the same way as you do, Jordan, when I'm like, I think people are kind of getting it. And then I'll scroll Facebook and see these posts. I'm like, no, we're not. We're still here. How are we here? Do
you follow people just to stay? People are like, somebody will send me a post by, I won't even name who the person is. And I'm like, they're like, this just came up on my Explore feed. I'm like, oh no, I follow this person. You know why? I follow them to like stay mad. Like I know I'm giving them some help by following them, but it keeps my fire going. Do you have scenarios like that?
I actually am secretly in like carnivore groups and
I love it.
I love joining. I love joining Facebook groups that are fucking crazy so I can just see what people are talking about. Admittedly, that's kind of a thing that I do.
Oh, that's awesome.
But you can learn a lot and see where people are. And it's unfortunate people are still afraid of carbs. They're still doing keto. They're still doing, giving up every single fruit and there is. It's sad. And so all we can do is just keep teaching. I mean, and have hopes in some way.
I think that there's both you and I do a little bit of like react content, like I think a portion of what we do is like, okay, like I want to give good information, but I also want to debunk some of this stuff. And I don't ever understand at all people who are like, don't tear other people down. Don't like just focus on giving out good information. It's like, no, like I've actually learned the most ever from people like Layne Norton who have said, okay, here's something that someone says. Here's why it's wrong. Here's the good information. That is by far the best way, or up there with the best ways to learn. You ever get people who say that if you're like, not tearing somebody, but you're like, hey, this is why this thing is wrong. I mean, that's useful content. Why do people not get that?
I don't understand. No, I get it. Yeah, I've been told that. I'm like, no, I'm not going to let misinformation just keep going by without saying something. That's like. It's those people that want you to be quiet. It's like, if you don't say anything, it doesn't fucking exist. It's like, no, it does exist. And we need to talk about it. And not everyone's going to like it. And that's okay.
It's a double whammy. It's like I'm not only telling you why this thing is wrong, but if you listen and fucking pay attention, I'm also going to give you that good information that you were hoping for. The video doesn't end with me being like, that's dumb. It's like, that's dumb because this and this is the truth. And here you have an opportunity to learn. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's too much misinformation and people will believe the misinformation rather than the truth because what we have to say is pretty boring. It doesn't really change. And it's like they want to see, they thrive on the negativity. They thrive on people telling them what not to eat because you know what? It gives them rules. People like fucking rules. It's like, don't do this, do that. That's that black and white thinking that we need to get away from.
Yeah, I wrote something in my newsletter last week or something like that, when it was like, we actually we know so much about nutrition. Like we actually know a ton about when it comes to nutrition and exercise, how to be healthy. And so if you scroll through social media, it seems like we don't know that much. We're still learning more. We're learning new
Right.
every day. We're learning more every day. Like we're really not. Like
Yeah.
we're not actually, I promise you, there's something earth shattering. Like I'll let you know. And there's data that comes out that like goes on top of a pile of other data that gently
Hmm.
moves the scale, maybe 1% in a direction. But like we are, if your social media is making you feel like nutrition is something we're still figuring out, we are not still figuring it out. People are like, seed oils aren't, like people are like, oh, we're just figuring out that seed oils aren't bad. It's like, well, no, we've always known that seed oils weren't bad. Like there's
Right.
never been a skewed argument towards that side. Or like, just if you scroll through social media and you feel like we're just figuring this out, like we're not. Like we've had this figured out for quite some time.
Yeah. When people say, "Oh my God, I don't know what to eat anymore. I can't eat anything," it's like you're listening to the wrong people.
Yeah, totally. I see that you do some. So I want to ask a bit about, okay, so when I ask or I think about, okay, I want to talk to Beth about what she's
Hmm.
passionate about right now. What are you passionate about teaching? Usually it's like, all right, that's kind of stuff that you make content about, but it could
Hmm.
be stuff that you talk about with one-on-one clients. Like within the space, we can't all cover everything. What are some things that you feel as a coach, as a content creator, you're particularly passionate about teaching or coaching or talking about?
I think right now, because I'm 50 and going through it, is menopause and being more proactive than reactive. A lot of people are not proactive enough and not starting their health and wellness journey until they're in the thick of menopause, when things are shit is hitting the fan and they're blaming everything on menopause. When in fact, if you were more proactive, it probably wouldn't be as bad as it is right now. But instead, you are trying to fix all these things that have been accruing and adding up through the years, and then adding menopause on top of that. It's going to make everything a lot harder. So being more proactive, and really helping people heal their relationship with food, get into the gym more and start strength training. That I'm pretty passionate about, like basically being more proactive about your health.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's two ways to talk about like the things that occur, perimenopause, let's say, and one
Mm-hmm.
of them is about how things change and how things absolutely do get more difficult, and also how things don't change in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
and the wide variety of ways that it affects women. But what you're saying is like, yeah, that's one thing we could talk about, is like how do we optimize those scenarios? How do we make the best of that scenario? But you're saying, hey, the best way to make that scenario suck less is to start earlier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. If I
that's.
didn't start in my early 40s, I can't imagine where I'd be right now, to be honest.
Can you talk a little bit about that for me, just as a man and just always trying to gather more
Yeah.
experience about like the real world, how this has been affecting you?
I think in my early 40s with drinking, just starting with drinking, I think a lot of women, and this is just the truth, are just drinking way too much. And it is affecting their menopausal symptoms and making them feel a lot worse. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire. So that was I noticed when I was drinking in my early 40s, it wasn't like my 30s. I was getting weird, like tachycardia, and just weird shit was happening. And I'm like, okay, this is just not normal. I think it's just time to cut the shit out. So that was my first step. And then, it, it wasn't, nothing was really too bad. I started strength training, I was taking care of my health until I'd say like 49, like really 50 was when I started getting like hot flashes, horrible hot flashes. And I kind of felt a little bit more tired than normal. So I went to my doctor and she put me on low dose birth control, which has actually helped me tremendously. And so I don't have any hot flashes anymore. I sleep really well. I don't really
Awesome.
have any symptoms anymore at the moment, but things change all the time. I think people have to understand too. You're constantly fluctuating. But if you're doing everything you can, like fiber, protein, strength training, walking, focusing on your sleep, hydrating, you will minimize and ask for help. A lot of women don't ask for help, or they'll listen to their doctor that says you're okay, nothing's wrong, you don't need to do anything. It's like, no, if you're feeling like shit, go somewhere else. Someone can help you. Like, don't take no for an answer, because there is help out there.
Do you get a lot of shouts for the HRT conversation?
I think I try not to talk about that too much, because that's almost out of my scope. Like, I feel like, because some people can't use HRT, like my doctor suggested not to do that yet. And that's like, I could use HRT if I was to go to some, online, people are like, oh, try this online, they'll test your hormones and give you HRT. It's like, well, I don't really know if I want to do that. I'm going to go to my doctor first and see what she has to say.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I think I tread a similar line as far as discussing that. I also like the bar for like, even I'm not, doctors are amazing. We need doctors. I love doctors. Doctors are good. This is not an anti-doctor conversation, right. But I get blood work done through a third party, and they usually give like doctor consults afterwards. And I know what the company's shtick is. The company's shtick is selling you HRT and TRT in my case. And I remember doing my blood work and getting, I'm not like a blood work guru, but this is what we do. I can take a look at people's blood work and have a general idea of what's going on. And my test was in whatever, let's say like 570, and my free T was like totally fine. And I immediately, and I was like, let me take a consult with this doctor, and immediately got just pummeled with, you should take HRT, your test should be 800 plus. Like, and I'm like, this is a moment of like, it's not just the health bodega on the corner that's like going to sell you these HRT sketch balls. This is a legit doctor. It's like on a legit Zoom call with me, like telling me that my test at 570 at 32 years old with no low T symptoms at all is like, I should absolutely be on T now for the rest of my life. And so I'm not saying don't trust your doctor, but I am saying like, this is, when we talk about HRT, I struggle with just being like, hey, talk to your doctor. That is great. It's easy for me to divert and say, hey, you should go talk to your doctor. But it's almost not always that simple. I mean, you have to have somebody you really, really trust.
There's that. And then, like I said, some doctors just brush you off. So women get desperate.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I can't imagine if my doctor brushed me off and I was struggling with like severe hot flashes that were disrupting my sleep, I would probably go to an online someone too, admittedly.
Yep. That is true. But I hear that story quite a bit. So you're good to bring that up for sure. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about a little bit about, so what's funny is like, as I don't do a lot of food content, and I almost get like laughed at of like, people just like laugh at my meals. And like, and I always say, I absolutely love every bite of food that goes into my mouth. I'm not a martyr. I don't eat shit that doesn't taste good. I love my food, but something I know I lack in my coaching is that just maybe an extra step of making things a smidge more fun on that aspect. I think you actually do a really great job with that. Like, not everyone does this. I don't know if you know, what's his name, the Plant Slant. He's got
I love him.
Yeah, and he does a lot of like food content. He's like, hey, he's like an interesting, maybe it's budget friendly option or a simple option of like, hey, this is high protein dessert, a high protein breakfast, or whatever it is. And you actually do a really great job of that. And I say that because not everyone does food content. So I'm curious why you've decided to do a lot of that. And how you think that that's helpful.
Well, first, I love creating recipes. So there's that. I've always been a good cook. I'm always making food at home. And I think I just want to help people create meals that are easy, simple, and that hit all the basics. Because I think a lot of people think it needs to be complicated and that you can't eat certain things, and that because you're 50, you need to have these fucking bird meals. So I want to let people know, like, these are plates that they're huge. Like, I'm not skimping on the food. I'm getting my protein. I'm getting my fiber. I'm also fitting those fun foods in. So I think that's what I'm trying to, help people realize, is that this can be simple. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. And you can do this too.
Do you do any like, just like discussion of balanced meals? Like when you're somebody who's like building a meal, is that something you have a discussion with the clients? Like, hey, let's build meals in this sort of structure. And what might that sort of be?
I'll say, base all your meals off. Let's pick a favorite protein source from this list, start there, and then build everything off that. So, okay, you got your protein. What is going to be your carb source? What's going to be your fat source? What's going to be your veggie? And just having people like visuals, like you can tell them all day long, but if they actually see it, I'm a visualist. And when I see something, I kind of retain it better than if I was to just say, here you go, choose this and make it. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm wondering if you see this too. I'm going to give you an example of something that happens with me with like most clients. And I want to see if that's something you see too, is like the conception or their understanding of my dog in the background, of like what a portion of protein or vegetable or fruit is oddly low. And that's something that was created by them in their brains based on probably how they grew up and what was shown to them as a child. Because my mom, I'll use my mom as an example, just as her generation. She'll be like, oh, I'm like, what'd you have for breakfast? She's like, oh, I had one egg and one egg white. And she's like, I had my protein. And I'm like, yeah, like that is because to her, that's a serving of protein. It's just not, I mean, it's not, I'm like, mom, have 10 egg whites, 10, she's like, 10 egg whites, it's so much. I'm like, yeah, it's only 170 calories, you know what I mean? It's like two eggs, Yeah. So, and I see that with vegetables too, where like someone will be like, oh, this is where like, just like having a communication with a client sometimes goes awry, where it's like, what'd you have for lunch? And they're like, oh, no, I had a turkey sandwich and I had raspberries or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I have fruit, protein, awesome. And then if you don't get it, if you don't ever check in a little bit more, you're like, well, they had like 4 raspberries.
Right.
And it's like sometimes for me, the biggest thing that's been helpful is like just rewriting what an actual portion is on a meal. It's like that little box of raspberries. I know that when we talk about raspberries, it's kind of expensive, whatever, but like that little box, like 170 grams, I'm like, start having that full box as whenever you're trying to add that to a meal, like whatever your understanding or whatever your intuition is telling you is a serving of protein, whatever your intuition is telling you is a serving of vegetables or fruit, double it. And I might be being over the top there, but 1.5x it, and do you see that's like, it's not even that people are like under eating like grams of protein, like they're counting it and not eating enough. It's just that their perception of, oh, I have a protein on my plate. It's just always such a small thing. And if we can get them to rewrite what that normal is, it's like that normal is more in like the 5 to 8 ounces of chicken, not in the 2 to 3 ounces of chicken, that could be super helpful.
Yeah. I think, especially with the protein part, people are like, well, I don't know how I'm going to hit my protein and not go over my calories. It's like, okay, so you can double the protein at your meal. Like instead of 3 ounces of chicken, why aren't you eating 6 ounces of chicken? People, they really just want to focus on these little tiny meals. Like they think eating less is going to get them where they need to go. When in fact, when they need to eat more nutrient dense, high volume foods instead of like the nutrient, non-nutrient foods that, there's this much and no one can see me. I'm like doing little hand
these
gestures.
Are on YouTube, so I get like 32 views, so someone's gonna see it. It's great.
It's easier to overconsume calories with a little bit, like a slice of pizza or, a couple donuts here and there, then filling your plate with like, see, if you were to track your calories, which I'm a huge fan of but like you say, what gets measured gets managed, and you can understand portions more and be able to figure out what can fit in your day. I think people need to experience with that more and learn about that so they can figure out what portions work for them.
Yeah, I don't think there's any single dietary intervention that's perfect, but if we look at Weight Watchers, I think Weight Watchers is not perfect, but what Weight Watchers actually does, and maybe they've had new iterations since the last time I looked, but fruits, vegetables, lean proteins are all 0 points. And that, I get the point of that is to encourage people to eat more of those things. And I think that is an end that does justify that choice of making them 0. Now, it doesn't actually teach somebody about calories, because there's going to be the moment where you have 150 calories and instead of grabbing the apple that's 0 points, you would rather have the Oreos that are X points. And you don't teach somebody that occasionally making that trade is just fine, because calories are most important. So they miss out on that teaching point, but they do really encourage people to, hey, like eat more of these lean proteins, fruits, and vegetables, and don't worry so much about the fact that they are also calories. Now, of course they are, and we can do both. But a lot of people are like, oh, should I go over my calories if it means hitting my protein? I'm like, I kind of have changed my tune on that a little bit, where I'm like, actually in the short term, if it means like a smidge over your calories, but you did that like with the extra chicken or with the extra broccoli or some shit, I kind of want people to do that. And I know that it's a situational kind of answer there, but I've kind of just rechanged my tune of like, not just hammering the calories. Sometimes it's like, I want you to go over by 100 if that means 50 extra grams of protein, because I know that in the long term, I bet you're so fucking full from that
that's the thing.
This course corrects on its own.
Yeah. If you focus just on protein and fiber, you're going to be pretty full, and you're probably not going to snack or eat as much as you used to, for sure.
Do you not give people, or at least have a discussion about like per meal targets or per day targets, or a bit of both? Or is it different from client to client?
I notice a trend with people, if they're eating more protein in the morning, that they're hitting their protein goals a lot easier. So I say, try to get most of your protein in the morning. And that way you're not like trying to play catch up at freaking 5 p.m. with 100 grams of protein,
Yep. Yep.
So that's a good strategy I found.
Yeah, breakfast definitely the hiccup for most people. Just because there's like societally speaking, like from a norm perspective, there's less options. I mean, you could have steak for breakfast, just like people not doing that though.
Yeah. And I see a lot of smoothies and bars for breakfast, or no breakfast until 11, which they're like, I'm intermittent fasting, and they'll have a fucking bar. And then at night they just go ham on everything.
Yep.
It's because, yeah, you're not eating any satisfying meals. You're not getting any protein in. Of course, you're going to binge at night. You're not setting yourself up for success. You're at 3 p.m. You are so hungry. You're just going to snack until dinner, and then you're going to eat dinner. You're going to snack again until you go to bed.
There is something scary, I think, a lot of times for people that are encouraged to eat more earlier in the day. I get it. I mean, it's just like makes perfect sense of your assumption that you will be hungry later. Mm-hmm. But I can't even think of a time where we've skewed calories earlier in the day, protein earlier in the day, fiber earlier in the day, just satiety earlier in the day. And it hasn't worked out really great.
Right.
Better energy throughout the day, like less cravings, less food focus. And then the interesting thing is like, yeah, okay, yes, you have less calories for later, but you've been more satiated throughout the day. You've had less food focus. So some of those like non-biological drives to eat, that psychological pressure that builds up, it's not there in the evening. And so, you have less calories later, but you're just psychologically in less of a state of like being just savage, eat a ton. Yeah, famine, exactly. So that usually works out positively, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And I get like some people need to kind of intermittent fast because that's their schedule. And it works for them. So, I'm not downplaying
but even that
eating habits, but also, yeah.
Go ahead.
Also, I've seen people that do intermittent fast that binge at night, and it's like, that's not working for you, apparently.
And even if you intermittent fast, I would still say, okay, like we could still do that, but like don't break your fast, air quotes, with a bar. Yeah, a bar or just like protein shake and water. Like have a first meal, whatever your first meal of the day is. If it's 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, like make it a hearty meal, high in protein, satiating meal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've been on this. So you make a lot of food posts. I think you do a great job with it. It's nice. It's simple. It's fun. I mean, it makes this, everybody can say, oh, I eat chicken. I used to work with a trainer back in the day. So just telling his clients, just eat fucking chicken and broccoli. It's not that hard, but that isn't the case in the real world. We need to meet people where they're at with a level of fun and taste and just over time move their palate. And I've been on this like tirade of like, I don't know why. I was sitting in the kitchen with Jenna the other day and we had raspberries. And I just was eating them and I'm like, these are fucking candy. I'm like, they taste so good. And I was thinking to myself, like, if you eat these raspberries and you don't think they taste like candy, like your diet's fucked. And I'm going over the top there. But what I mean is that your palate changes over time. Yeah. And so where people move to a more nutritious diet, sometimes it takes time for that stuff to be more enjoyable because it's almost like your taste buds are like referencing it in comparison to a Reese's cup. It's like, yeah, it's not as good as that. But if you eat a little less of that stuff, a little bit more of this stuff, your palate does change.
Oh, yeah. I see that with water. Okay. So, people are like, I have such a hard time drinking water. And then they're adding fucking like 8 times a day, like the Crystal Light packets, which, hey, that's great, right? If that's getting you to drink your water, but also it's skewing up your taste buds. Like you're consistently wanting these things that are sweet because that's all you taste is like the sweet. Like drink normal water with fucking lemon in it. It's not that hard. Get a straw, put some ice in your water. You don't need like high C water all day long.
Fact. Yeah.
I do see that.
Yeah. I see that a lot of like and that's not, I'm not like, I don't know what the point of saying that is other than I think that there's some level of faith where if you're out there and you're listening and you're like, yeah, but I don't like more simplified foods or simple meals. Now, yeah, okay, we can still make shit taste good with seasoning and some condiments and all this stuff. We can make stuff that tastes good, but there is an element of like, yes, you're never going to really enjoy like a well put together salad if like 99% of the time you're eating fast food. It's just like it doesn't taste as good. Let's be real. And so there is a reference and a bit of faith of like my palate will change over time. And I've been on this other tirade lately, not so much on social media, and I'm sure I'll post about it at some point, but like I actually don't know this, so I'm not sure. I haven't done enough like research in my following, but I'm interested in your thoughts on full day of eating posts where like I'll pose my perspective here. And this is my perspective because I haven't done enough research on this, but like you post a lot of food and you're like, I'm guessing your point is like, here are examples, like you said, visuals, options, inspiration for people to go on and create their own versions of this. And when people do full day of eating posts, there's two camps. There's the one camp that's like, hey, I'm just doing that for someone. I'm just showing them examples of stuff. And then there's the other camp of like, you're making these foods sound like as if this is they're special, like this is exactly how you got to look the way you look, and these meals are special. I don't know. Do people actually take it that way? I love watching full day of eating posts, and I just think these are opportunities for inspiration. Or am I saying that from where I'm sitting, and that's not fair because other people are taking it like gospel?
I think from my perspective, the full day of eating posts, I think it depends who's doing them. I can't stand when someone's doing this is what I eat in a day and they're fucking in a bikini and and then they're like, first meal is a fucking arugula smoothie, or, you know, some nasty ass, just like Whole Foods, you know, barely 500 calories. There's that camp. And then, you know, I was doing what I eat in a day a little while ago. Now I'll do like what I eat in a week, just to show people what I eat in a week.
Yeah,
when cool. I was doing what I eat in a days, I was getting a lot of how many calories is this? What do you weigh? They wanted to mimic and not get ideas from the meals, but kind of like copy what I'm eating because they thought that that's what they should be doing to get to where I am. And that's what I don't like about those, because people will really feed into or try to use the same calories you are. I get so many DMs like, what height are you? What's your weight? Jesus. I get that a lot. I'm like, why do you need to know that? That's not helping you. Like I am showing you things that you can make to fit your day. Like you can eat any of this stuff, but make it fit into your life. This fits into my life. And I think that's where people get a little bit skewed, is they really want to just copy what you're doing.
That's helpful perspective. You have a larger following, and I'm sure you have a ton of that, just like more R&D of doing that, of posting it and seeing how people respond to it. So when someone says that, oh, what height are you? How many calories are you eating? Like whatever, like it brings me back to I actually have a video waiting in the wings being edited right now about like what that tells me is that this person thinks that their struggles come from not having the right numbers. They're like, oh, I'm missing. I must have the right. I just really need to figure out my numbers. It's like, it's like it just comes back to that. Like, why ask you what height you are, as if that they are going to ultimately find out a number for them, and that's their hurdle. Right. Guys, use any fucking calorie calculator out there, any of them, literally body weight times 12, or Precision Nutrition has one, or TDEcalculator.net, or literally any of them, and just fucking start. Just fucking start. Yeah. Nothing about Beth's height, weight, age, activity level is going to help you. Even if you are a clone of her, you are different genetically, and that it can make a difference up to like 25-30%. And so it's just not helping. You don't need another number. You don't need another one-off macro count.
Right.
And so that's sorry for the rant, but
but it's so true. It's amazing how many people will ask me that, and it's frustrating because I get it, because I was that person. I'd be like, oh, I wonder how many calories she's eating. Like, you know. It's interesting, but also you can get caught up in the comparison and just let it be a cesspool of you just not starting or taking action, like you said. Comparing yourself to someone else never works out in the end.
And we're also in the age of eating more is cool, and so I think we're recoiling into like people pumping their numbers up of like, oh yeah, I'm eating 2,500 calories, I'm 111 pounds, and I'm like, are you like, is this like a really good way for you to pitch your reverse dieting program?
I did I got my RMR tested. In San Diego. When I was there, I went to the San Diego, what is it? I think it was like the Nutrition Science Center, for SDSU. And I had to fast for 12 hours at least before. I couldn't have any coffee. I went to San Diego to go see Coldplay. So it was like the night after the Coldplay concert. I had no sleep. I was on like my biological clock was still on East Coast time. Yep. And so I showed up like tired as hell, hungry. Shit. And so when they did it, my RMR is actually lower than I thought. I was surprised. So actually, but my maintenance was right where my coach figured it would be. I was going in there thinking, you know what, my maintenance has got to be more than this. And
how do they factor in your activity level?
They do that after the RMR. So
They ask you about your life, I'm guessing, or
yeah, well, they asked my height, my weight, and that's basically it for the RMR. But then
for
after
RMR, yeah, but for the
yeah,
maintenance calories, like
for the
you're
maintenance calories, they added the exercise, the lifestyle and activity, resting energy expenditure, and then total energy output would equal my maintenance. So I'm not going to say the numbers,
people
but
are dying to know the numbers. Let me just
you
tell
know,
you, people are dying to hear. No, I don't want you to either. Yeah.
but I will say that my resting energy, my RMR was 1296, which the guy said it was 7% lower than the normal. And I was like, okay, well, is there something like maybe wrong? Like, do I have like hypothyroidism? Is that maybe a possibility?
7% less?
Yeah. And he's like, when's the last time you had that tested? I'm like, a year or two ago. He's like, no, you're fine. He's like, I wouldn't honestly. He's like, you have a smaller body. It's just the way you're built, and just keep strength training and moving. And I was like, all right. So I really do have to focus on making sure that my NEAT is always up, and then I'm strength training, because I will gain weight quicker if I don't pay attention to that. So doesn't mean you guys have to go and get your RMR tested. I do it for data, and the data ended up being correct for where my coach actually thought my maintenance was. So.
And ironically, as far as I know, RMR is usually in an 8 to 10 times body weight, somewhere in that range. And so that probably checks out decently well, I'm guessing. Like 8 to 10 times body weight ish probably is that's pretty ballpark for you. And interestingly enough, like people are like, there's an assumption that having a higher RMR like is better. And RMR does not correlate with body fat level. And so like if you have a higher RMR, like that does not tell us about your predisposition for being fatter or leaner or whatever, having more body fat, less body fat. And it also doesn't correlate with body weight, body fat loss maintenance. And so like people who lose weight, and then we look at all the people who maintained it for the long term, it wasn't all the people that had higher RMRs. And so I'm not saying it's totally irrelevant, but I am saying that there's like this, like, if I could just burn more calories and I'd be fine. If I could just burn more calories, it'd be fine. It's like, there's just no correlation that burning more calories at rest is actually the genetic advantage. There are other genetic advantages, probably down to satiety signaling, but it's probably not I burn more calories than you,
Right.
Although that from a privilege, like I'm not like some fucking caveats here, but like, sure. I'd say the benefit to having a higher, being able to eat more calories in this context is mostly down to the fact that living in a food environment where we are today, going out to eat in restaurants, we're not getting like RMR scaled meals. We're all getting large meals. And so, it's harder to navigate social events with less food. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do quickly. I mean, I think I like whatever I think I use a decent amount of F-bombs, but I fucking love your content for the fact that you're just whatever. You're just, I'm sure you're not everyone's cup of tea, but you're plenty of people's cup of tea based on how well you're doing, which is awesome. But you get some comments of like, I wish you didn't curse so much. Is that something that has died down now after people just like are going to take it?
If I have a video that's going, it comes in waves. Like if I have a video that's doing really well and I get a new audience, like I can't believe they're swearing, it's usually a lot of never men. It's always women, which is kind of interesting. But people are like, why are you doing that? It's like, if people don't know you like outside of your creating content. I've been swearing. I'm from the East Coast. I worked in the bar industry for 20 years, and in LA, and I'm a recovering alcoholic. It's like, we just don't, I'm me. Like if I'm not swearing, then I don't give a fuck anymore. It's like I'm passionate. It's like that East Coast passion that comes out. It's funny because when I was coaching at the gym, I have gifts from clients with like fuck bandanas. I have fuck socks. It's just been something that it's just my language, and it wouldn't be me if I was to try to filter myself, and it wouldn't be fun for me to make content. If I had to try to stop swearing, like I'd literally have to focus on not being me.
Yeah, it's also not that complicated. Like, I just don't understand. Like, imagine like you go to a restaurant and you order the food, and then like you like go into the back and you're like, hey, like your food would be a lot better if you use less pepper or something. But it's like, well, I just don't understand like going into somebody's audience and being like why? What if it's not your cup of tea? Don't come back to the restaurant. Like it's okay. You don't need to, whatever the whole like it's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure or your displeasure. And I don't even think we need to spend much time on it. I think you're like, hey, it's me being me, and I'd have to expend more energy to not be me, and I'd burn out, and I'd ultimately do less good.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about, we got a couple minutes here. Tell me about what you're talking about at the Coaches Summit. Did you decide on what you're gonna?
I decided to work with actually a speaker coach, which I
Yeah.
randomly found, and because I want to come prepared. I don't, I've never spoken before. Obviously, I mean, I've done like Zooms and things like that, and I make content, but it's not like speaking in front of an audience trying to teach them something. So I think I've been working on topics right now. I think I'm going to go with like I have 5 tips to show up authentically for your clients, your employees, and your audience.
Awesome. That's going to be great. And you're whatever. Now we're like kind of off air here, but I think that I'll just say I've spoken one time in my life. This is just an opinion based on fucking one. I've been to a million different conferences also, and so I've been on the other end of it. But like, if I could give 2 cents, it would be spending just a small amount of effort making the actual visual of the presentation kind of pleasing. I didn't hire a speaking coach, although that's an amazing idea and totally could have done that. I hired someone to help me with the presentation, like and putting it together and organizing in a way that was like not super fucking boring.
Right.
And I think that went a long way from feedback that I got. So that would be my 2 cents.
So you said don't get caught up in the presentation part, like the
Well, I've just been spend a second to like make it to make it good. I know what good means is interesting, but I was like, I made it on like Canva, and my version of making it is like just a couple bullet points that I'm going to be able to talk off of. But like I don't have any artistic ability. I couldn't make it. It doesn't need to be the fucking Mona Lisa, but like just like making it look somewhat visually pleasing, because it can get stuffy in there and it can get you nasally of like you just talking at people, and just having a couple things to break it up was like kind of nice. Yeah. You're going to do great with that. You're funny.
I think I'm going to bring out like old videos of like when I started coaching, where, I have my business partner and I, when he was like teaching me the barbell deadlift cues, and he was like recording me over and over and over again. And I was so fucking hungry and I was getting so pissed at him. I mean, there's so many like clips from when I started coaching at the gym, like in even the certified functional strength coach cert. I failed the first in-person exam because I went in there telling myself I was going to fail. So, I knew what I was doing, but as I'm doing it, I'm like, yeah, you're going to fucking fail. And of course, they're like, you did 2 things wrong. We need you to videotape them. So I'm at the gym with my now business partner, and he's retaping these things that I had to send to Mike Boyle to get approved. And so I'm going to like show like stuff like that. And as things like that, I guess.
Do you have, if you look back at those times, man, I think about those times. Do you have things that you look back on, you're like, wow, I can't fucking believe I did that or said that or encouraged people to do that or like coached and said that to people? I'll give one, is that I have a direct quote. I swear, crack me up. I said to people, if you could only do one thing for your health, it would be keep your blood sugar as low as possible at all times. Like that, those words have come out of my mouth. And I just look back on that and crack myself up. I don't know what the fuck I was talking about.
I was those never miss a Monday, nice. David Goggins, like I had a David Goggins phase, shit like that, like hard, stay hard.
Stay hard. Stay hard for more than 8 hours.
Like if you're not running fucking 20 miles a week, what are you doing? That type of thing. But yeah, I'm not like that anymore. You have to meet people where they're at.
Yeah. Did you find that there was a level of extremism that like helped, like as like a jumping off point that like
it helped me?
Yeah.
I mean, I thrive on that kind of stuff. So, but not a lot of people do.
True. And I think the Goggins is not everyone's cup of tea. And I can take Goggins for what. And I had a Goggins, dude. I have Goggins book on the wall. I have all these like books that I look back and I a little cringe, but I'm like, yeah, but that's sort of jumping in with both feet all in, like fucking living it, identifying as it. Like it helped me get in deep enough to eventually take a step back and reform my identity now in my 30s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty normal.
Can't Hurt Me got me through marathon training. I listened to that audiobook while running 17 fucking miles.
Try that. I'm training for half marathon right now.
Are you?
I'm the worst runner. I'm the worst cardiovascular fitness of all time.
Listen to that book while training. It'll get you through it. Trust me. Oh my God. So right before COVID, I enrolled in a Sugarloaf Marathon, my first one, and trained the whole entire winter in Maine. All right, listening to Can't Hurt Me. So, and then it was
out in the fucking frigid weather.
It was April. It was and it got canceled because of COVID 4 weeks before the fucking marathon. I was so pissed. So I trained up until like taper. And people are around my, locally were like, well, why don't you just do it locally by yourself and we'll support you? I'm like, fuck no, I'll never train for a marathon again. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done.
So I was like,
sorry,
you know
marathon
what?
people.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Were you lifting during that time, or you were like, hey,
I was, I was lifting a couple days a week and running 30 miles a week.
Jesus Christ.
Good I know.
Yeah.
And cool. Coaching.
And coaching and working and freezing your fucking nuts off in Maine. Yeah. Cool. All right. We're heading up on an hour here. I want to be respectful of your time. Give people a shout where they can find you: TikTok, Instagram, coaching, all that good stuff.
You can find me at BethFerracoFitness.com. If you're interested in coaching, you can apply there. And then I'm Beth Feraco Fitness, TikTok, Instagram. I have a podcast called Cut the Crap with Beth and Matt. And that's about it, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure people know who you are by now, but if they don't, then they should now. So I appreciate your time. Super fun chat, Beth. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.